I think this looks like the best Thunder team that I've seen, period. It doesn't feel like it because you're like, man, that's Kevin Durant, that's James Harden, that's Russell Westbrook over there. But I feel like the combustibility factor of that team, where maybe they were a little happy getting to the finals. Maybe as young as they weren't as mature as this group is, even though this group is younger by the numbers. I feel like this team, I don't know if they beat the brakes off the 2016 Thunder or the 2012 Thunder, but they beat them, and I think they beat them good.
So which team do you think is better, 2012 or 2016 Thunder?
I would say 2012 because you do have James Harden, who single-handedly put out the San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference Finals after going down 2-0. That Spurs team was really good. That Spurs team won 20 straight games from the end of the regular season to the postseason and went up 2-0. And Scott Brooks decided, man, let me run James Harden on this pin down. And they had no counter for it, and James Harden became fourth quarter guy in ways that we have not seen James Harden turn into fourth quarter guy in games of stakes since then. So I will say the 2012 just because you have that diversity. But there's a better Kevin Durant in 2016, theoretically a better Russell Westbrook in 2016, but there's still the combustibility of both of those players in big moments, whereas you don't think Shea's not going to melt down. J-Dub's not going to melt down. Chet ain't going to melt down. Not in those big moments.
Yeah, I feel like I actually thought that the 2012 team was probably the best version of the Thunder at that point too. Your recall is insane, by the way. But
yeah, there's something wrong with me. That's all.
But I think the difference is, like, I think offensively, the current iteration of the Thunder stack up pretty well against the 2012. I'd say maybe you give a slight edge to the 2012 team, but the difference on the defensive end to me is the stark difference for me of this current Thunder team. And I think this Thunder team defensively is by far better than the 2016 and 2012. So when stacking up that, I think that this version of the Thunder is the best version that we've seen of the Thunder in the history of their franchise. And I think that will be cemented when they win the championship. It's kind of easy to just look at defensive rating and be like, oh, this team was better defensively. But I think it's the way that they're doing it and the significance of the leap of SGA and the complementary players like Jalen Williams. So like in 2012, Russ was, getting votes for MVP. Jalen Williams there's no other person getting votes for MVP on this Thunder team. The role players and the depth of that team to me now seems better than the depth that they had in 2012. Because I'm looking at the roster now, it's like, what? Serge Ibaka was a defensive player of the year caliber player at that point. Kendrick Perkins was still very good. But then you go Nick Collison, Daquan Cook, Thabo Cephalosha was a good player, but come on.
Tabo,
Nazir Muhammad, Reggie Jackson, Derek Fisher. Yeah, looking at the bottom end of that bench, like give me Caruso, you know what I'm saying? Cason Wallace, those guys to me are making more impactful. They're giving more impactful minutes to me than that team did at that point in time.
Yeah, I think, and this kind of goes, this is a little weird because we tend to forget the small details. Just like we kind of forgot Boston's road up until last year. That Tatum and Brown had been in 5 of the 7, Eastern Conference Finals. They made it to the finals. They had just been knocking on the door, and then they finally got there. 2012, or let's say 2011, right? The Thunder make it to the Western Conference Finals. They lose to Dirk in 5. And that great Dallas team that went on to win the whole thing. 2012, we just talked about it. Went to the finals, have home court advantage against the Miami Heat, against the best of LeBron and Wade and all those guys. Have home court advantage.
Tough
squad. And lose all 3 games in the 2-3-2. In other words, bring back the 2-3-2. That's all I'm going to say. Y'all listening, bring back 2-3-2. 2013, that was the year that Russell Westbrook got ran into by Pat Beverly along the sidelines. That team was the best team in the NBA. I firmly believe that. That team was the best team in the NBA up until that moment. I think they were headed towards a rematch with Miami. Who knows what would have happened, but that derailed them. In 2014, they lose in 6 in overtime to the Spurs team that had won like 64 games. Kawhi was coming into his own. Tim Duncan, remember when he was walking off the floor in Oklahoma City and they were like, you know, how do you think you're going to do against Miami? He said, yeah, we're going to beat them this time. Like that was one of the great Spurs teams ever. And then the next year, Kevin Durant has the Lisfranc injury, the first foot injury that cost them a spot in the playoffs altogether. And we just told you what happened in 2016 with the Warriors. They had a great run and could never get over the top with Durant and Westbrook and Presti running the show and maybe switching some pieces around. This team is going to get over the hump. Whether this team hangs around for as long as that team hung around, I tend to believe they will. But I think it is this franchise's time. It is this team's time. I think they're going to win it. And for the sake of all involved, I hope it's a sweep.
Let's keep Vinny out of OKC. Let's have him spend the least amount of time in OKC as possible. And I think the timelines are actually pretty interesting too, because you know SGA, he's in what is 6th, 7th year in the league now.
Yep.
That's right around the time where Durant was getting his MVP considerations as well. The youth of Westbrook and James Harden, that moment, he got, I think 2012, James Harden got 6th man of the year, right? And then after that, he bounced. So I don't think that, and that's also, I think the difference of the teams is that I think that there was more individual egos to manage that you saw could have some fracture. Whereas like with this current iteration, I don't see that fracture happening. Everyone's okay with being a co-star or a co-pilot in the current situation.
It's far different personalities, and I think the Thunder organization, Sam Presti and those guys are better equipped to handle guys now in ways that they were not equipped to handle them back then. Even though it's still sort of the same program, there's going to be, you know, some different things that you're going to do to make guys not feel like that they're being boxed in here. Right. So congrats to the Thunder.
That's interesting. That was kind of like a lesson learned opportunity, like that. I don't know that many franchises learn that quickly too, right?
Well, when you're forced to learn those lessons when one of the greatest free agent defections ever happens on your watch after making the Western Conference Finals, you better take a look in the mirror. They have, and they had to take a step back, and they did it and during the time where people did not think that they would be able to get back, and they've gotten back here, and they're better than ever, which is wild to considering the team that we thought they had would never get any better. So you give Sam Presti a whole lot of credit